Welcome to the Pre Nup, the wedding obsessed podcast designed to help you plan your dream day. I'm your host, Adriana, and each week I'm joined by the industry's top professionals, celebs, influencers, and friends who are sharing their best tips, advice, and mistakes they've made so you don't have to. The Pre Nup is a Love Stories TV podcast. I am honored to present today's guest, one of the most notable, talented, and knowledgeable jewelry designers in the industry. She is the go-to innovator in engagement rings and wedding bands, and today she is sharing her expertise with us and answering all of our burning wedding jewelry questions. I am so thrilled to present Ms. Susie Saltzman to the Pre Nup podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm honored to be here.
You are a dream guest of mine. You really are just so incredible at what you do. I feel like everyone uses your page for their engagement ring inspiration. And you're fabulous.
Thank you.
You have so many great things going on. So a lot of our listeners are engaged, planning a wedding, but we do have a subset of pre-engaged, is what we lovingly call them. And they're girls who maybe dream of one day getting married, or, they know it's coming soon. But for them, I want to start, and we're going to have stuff for our engaged girls, so don't worry. But for our pre-engaged, I want to start with the engagement ring and certain things to look for. So on a very, very basic level, can you explain to us the 4 C's and the importance?
Absolutely. So the first of the 4 C's is carat.
Okay.
Fun fact, carat is a weight, not an exact size. And then you have color, which talks about kind of like a yellow undertone or a hue to the stone. And then you have clarity, which talks about inclusions or flaws that are typically internally contained to the diamond. And cut is the last of the 4 C's. A lot of people think it refers to shape, but it actually has to do with measurements and proportions and angles that like maximize light return to the eye. So sparkle. Cut's really about sparkle.
Okay, makes sense. So in terms of the shape of a ring, are certain C's more important than others?
That's an awesome question. Really smart question to ask because yes, it matters.
Okay.
And carat weight being like the first of them. So diamonds are typically classified as being either round brilliance or being fancy shaped. So anything that's not a round is fancy, right?
Okay.
Radiant, emerald, marquise, pear, all those things. And different fancy shapes will have different kind of sizes associated with their carat weight. And also, I think like certain shapes, you have to be a little bit more careful with color. Certain shapes, you have to be more careful with clarity. I can give examples, but don't want to
I want to hear an
weeds.
example. So what is something that would be more important with color or clarity?
Yep. So I think ovals show their color more than any other shape.
Okay.
Meaning like if you want an oval diamond, I would prioritize color, work like higher in the color range. I'd say like D, E, and F, maybe a G.
Okay.
Maybe compromise on clarity, but still make sure it's eye clean.
Interesting.
Conversely, if you want an emerald cut because it has a different faceting arrangement, I would make sure that you're a VS2 or better in clarity. So prioritize clarity, and then you can compromise a little bit more with color.
Interesting. That is, because it's all about the cut, I guess.
Totally.
So we mentioned color, and this is something that I thought we would get to later, but just while we're on it, what's the deal with a yellow diamond? Like, is it the best of the best or the worst of the worst?
It depends. So the color scale for a colorless diamond, which means you want like a white stone, right? A white diamond. The color range starts at D, which is colorless, like as bright and white and absent of like a yellow tone as diamonds come, and it goes all the way to Z.
Okay.
So D through J is colorless to near colorless, but anything that's like K to Z color is what people kind of now refer to as a champagne diamond. So, but it's not a fancy yellow diamond yet. So the diamond has to be more saturated in like a specific hue to be a fancy yellow diamond. Okay. So when you're in this champagne range, the diamonds are actually far more affordable because they're less rare. But then once you enter into this fancy yellow, there's a whole different but a slightly different grading scale, and they're rare, which is really like to have a fancy yellow. It's more of like a lemony kind of zingy yellow, not like peachy.
Okay.
It's just more rare. So
does it work with any shape?
There are certain shapes that are better. And fancy yellows are usually cut in fancy shapes. So like you don't see a lot of round cut diamonds. It's just hard to kind of retain the color. Typically depth helps retain color in a stone, like even colored gemstones. They're usually cut kind of deep to like maximize the richness of that color.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So I know that I'm hopping around a little bit here, but we talked about color for an oval is probably the premium importance. And then for a radiant, it's clarity. What about a round? What's the most important thing? Everything?
No. Rounds actually, I think you can get away with a lower color grade. Okay. Rounds mask their color, in my opinion, better than any other shape. Okay. So you can go I, you could even go J. I mean, it's not that simple, right? Everybody has different kind of values or priorities. Sure. But I think you can go a little bit lower on the color scale and it's not offensively obvious or yellow. For example, like an oval that's an eye color and a round that's an eye color are not going to look the same. The oval is going to look much more yellow. Right. And with rounds, you can also kind of like cherry pick a slightly included stone and have it still be eye clean.
Interesting. So, and what about something like an emerald or an azure that's like not as sparkly per se?
So emeralds and azures have what's called a step cut faceting arrangement. So it's like hall of mirrors, those kind of rectangular, almost like a staircase. Yeah. Whereas round brilliants and ovals or even marquise, they have they're more like triangular kind of brilliant facets. So the brilliant cut shapes will mask their clarity or their inclusions better than an emerald cut or an azure. So with emerald cuts and azures, you would definitely want to prioritize clarity. Okay. Yeah, because the lower you go, it's like very easy to kind of pick up those inclusions because of how it's cut, the small cuts.
That's so interesting. I feel like nobody talks about that. I definitely did not know. So you mentioned when you were explaining the 4 C's that carat weight is not necessarily the size. So all the girls out there, I think they just want like the biggest, most beautiful ring they could get. And that's going to look different for everyone. And of course, that rule doesn't apply to everyone. So if that's not you, that's fine. But for the girls that it is important to, how can we get the most surface area of carat weight without compromising the stone?
It's a great question. And it's one of the best things to educate people about up front, right? Is that like, don't look at carat weight in isolation because it can be a little bit misleading. Yeah. I think the shapes that show their carat weight best are going to be a pear or an oval. They can just like look very large for their carat weight. Okay. Stones, we were just talking about emerald cuts and azures, they tend to be cut really deep. So like a lot of the weight is kind of hidden underneath the stone. So if you wanted an emerald cut and an oval to be the same size, you probably would have a difference in carat weight, maybe anywhere from like a half to a carat and a half difference in weight for the same size. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Okay. So I'm learning so much here. Okay. So then we get into things, we're talking about cuts, like an old mine cut. So what is the deal with that? Because I feel like it's such a beautiful cut, but you don't see it super often. Is it a little bit more rare or are you seeing it a lot?
So I feel like old mine cuts are having a resurgence. And like antiques in general, I think are really popular. And I think they appeal because they're so unique. Yeah. I mean, in fact, I think that's why oval has been trending for the last like 8 to 10 years. Yes. Is that 3 people can have an oval cut engagement ring, but the shape and like the kind of lobes, the details are just going to be different from one stone to the next. And old mines, they mimic that. Okay. Old mine cuts, it's a little bit being used interchangeably with antique cushions. Okay. So people like this kind of like old world, vintagey, like chunky facets, diamond. It just, I think, feels like special and different to them.
Yeah. Are there any other cuts that maybe I wouldn't know or aren't super common to the layperson, such as myself, that maybe someone who's looking for a really unique ring might like?
Yeah, for sure. Well, old Europeans are similar to old mines, but they're more of like a round shape. Okay. I think they're pretty, but I would say like really unique cuts that people maybe don't know about but would want to explore are a shield cut, which is kind of like kite-like or triangular a little bit, but it can be really kind of funky. Yeah. Also, some people now are loving movals, which is like a combination between a marquise and an oval. So marquises are pointed like a football.
Pretty.
Yeah. So, and also even with emerald cuts, like if you play with the length to width ratio or how clipped or pronounced those corners are, it can totally change the look and feel and sparkle from one diamond to the next. So If you're dealing with any fancy cuts, like see a number of stones and really figure out what shape you like, which often translates into the length to width ratio.
Okay. Very smart. I want to get into a little bit of the customization process because, I mean, people just die for your designs. You have a new collection out, which I want to get to.
Thanks.
But before I do, we're still kind of, talking about the building of the ring. And I think everyone's mind goes to the stone or the stones and what's going to go around it. Are you going to have just a single or are you going to have, a center stone and two around, whatever. But there is a lot more that goes into the ring. And you taught me this because I am an avid follower on social. I've been trying to get you on the podcast forever because I'm obsessed. But you talk about the anatomy of the ring, which is something that I never, ever considered. And I bet that probably has a big part of the customization of the ring too, right?
I think if you're going to customize anything, you kind of have to have like a blueprint or somewhere to start, or else it can be so abstract and overwhelming that it's not fun, right?
Yeah.
So I think if you can kind of break it down to the components or the like main pieces of an engagement ring that you're going to adjust, it makes it a little bit more palatable, like a little bit easier to know what you value in those aspects, right? The shank, for example, is the band or the part that goes around your finger.
Okay.
Like, what shape do you want it? Do you want it to be delicate? Do you want it to be wide and chunky?
Yes.
And then like the basket to shank connection is important. It also can impact how the wedding band fits with your ring. Like there are a lot of things to consider, but I like to think that our approach to custom is really like inviting people into the process of customization and asking them the right questions so they can answer them. And together we can really figure out like what's important.
Totally. So let's say I'm going to propose. I come in with an appointment, of course. Don't go without an appointment.
We've had that happen a couple of times. It makes me really sad. I'm like, ooh.
I bet
Sorry,
you have.
we're not there.
But, people need to know. And not everyone knows, but now they do.
Thank you.
So if I'm coming in for an appointment to design a custom engagement ring for my fiance, what does that process look like and turnaround time for that?
Excellent question. So we require a call with any client before we invite them in to book an appointment.
Okay.
And we do that because really we want to cater and customize the entire meeting to them. So it's helpful usually to start by understanding what shape they want and loosely what style. Like, do they want a solitaire, a 3-stone ring? Do they want a hidden halo? There's a series of questions that we ask to kind of get more feedback and really hone in on shape. So in that initial meeting, after we've talked on the phone and, booked an appointment, we'll bring you into our office in Lower Manhattan and we will share diamonds with you. We will also, of course, we're educating you a bit on the 4 C's and you're educating us on what you like and together we're going to really learn how to back into what it is that you're comfortable with from an investment standpoint.
Yeah.
We're going to hand select your diamond. We're going to then design your ring together and fabricate it in New York. And from beginning to end, from like when we meet and look at diamonds to when the ring is finished is usually about 2 or 3 months. We've done it in like a week and a half, which is not ideal.
Whoa.
But like 2 to 3 months is like almost always more than enough time where you can take your time and you don't have to rush.
So that's the sweet spot.
I think so.
Okay. Yeah. And will you hold on to a ring for someone like when it's ready? Do they necessarily have to pick it up? Because I know that's a point of contention with a lot of men. They're like, I can't hold on to this thing. And women, but
we've held rings.
Okay.
We have a vault and safe for that reason. Like also sometimes people need to wait for like a bonus to clear stuff for payment. So we have no problem doing that.
Okay. Obsessed. So on the topic of payment, money, things like that.
Yes.
It reminds me of a topic that I really want to get into, which is the reason I'm talking about budget, lab grown versus natural diamonds. So, and there are other stones too, and I want to get into that. But I first want to compare these two because it's such a hot topic now.
Totally. We have to talk about it.
So what are your thoughts as a longtime jeweler, someone who's been doing this forever, on a lab grown?
So I'm very classically trained. Like I did a lot of my education and early career and product development for like a luxury retailer. And I think because I'm classically trained, when lab grown started to like really kind of become more interesting to people, which was around 2020. At first, I was a little apprehensive about them. But the more I learned, the more I educated myself, I really started to think like it's a pretty amazing alternative. And I think that when I talk about naturals or lab growns, if someone comes in with a question or they're unsure of what they want, I try to be very neutral in my answers are in my approach and really fact-based, because I do think that there are two pretty different consumers. And I think that's one of the beauties of being able to custom design your engagement ring, is that it really is about personally what's important to you.
Yes, definitely. So optically, differences between a natural and a lab grown.
The crazy thing is chemically, optically, from a property perspective, a lab-grown diamond and a natural diamond are the same in the sense that like they have the same hardness, unlike other diamond alternatives, right? Like cubic zirconia or moissanite, where they don't have the same hardness, they don't have the same refraction and like the same interaction with the light.
Right.
So I think lab growns are really cool in that sense, right? Like it is a diamond. You're making it under a super condensed timeline, but you're basically mimicking what happens in Mother Nature. It's a combination of high pressure, high temperature, but you're really collapsing the amount of time, also like not having to excavate the earth and all these things. So the price reflects that.
Sure. Yeah. So it's a big financial difference. So
Totally.
In terms of an investment, and I'm talking more like, no one's going to resell the ring because it's going to be fine and perfect. But, you have to think about these things because it's a big investment. So what is the resale like for a lab grown versus a natural?
I am trying to kind of encourage people to be like almost reframe what heirloom means or what investment means, because even with a natural diamond, the return on your investment, like it's not an investment. I think the word investment we need to move away from, because it's really misleading.
Yeah.
Like the general rule of thumb is that even if you want to sell your natural diamond ring like 5, 10, 25 years down the road, where hypothetically it could have doubled in value, the general rule is that if you get like a fifth of what you paid for the ring, it's considered a good return. And the reason for that is that like the people more likely than not that you're selling it to have access to these goods at their wholesale prices. So they're only going to get it from you if they're getting a steal, right?
Sure.
And with regards to lab grown, people will tell you like there's no return, like you can't resell it if you wanted to.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with that, but I don't think that should deter people from considering lab growns, because at the end of the day, I think like a salad bowl or china that you have from your family is an heirloom, right? I think it's like the memories and what you've associated with this thing that you're passing down, right?
Absolutely.
So,
yeah, I think that's a much smarter way to go about it. It's like, it's not like buying a car, but in some ways, once you drive it off the lot, you're not going to get that same dollar amount for it.
I've used that exact analogy with people. Yeah, and it's also like, particularly with our clients, like if you're custom designing something, also like there's so much put into the customization of that, and not really from a financial investment standpoint, but it was made just for you, right? Like if someone were to try to resell their, custom designed wedding dress, like it might not fit someone else. Anyway, the point is like you have to just kind of know that it's the sentiment and the emotion and the memories are really like where the value's at for you.
Absolutely. So other than financial, because that's the big one. That's why someone would go with a lab grown over a natural, right?
Yes.
What are the main reasons you find people really just prefer natural, the people who do prefer it?
Sure. I think people that prefer natural, I think they tend to feel like lab growns are like fake or not real. And I'm like so hesitant to even say that. Yeah. Because they're not. Lab grown diamonds are real diamonds, but I think it really comes down to psychology. And people really, again, they're going to feel really emotionally attached to this purchase because of the meaning and significance behind an engagement ring. Sure. On the other side of it, I think that people who really desire a lab grown, not only is it, this kind of goes hand in hand with the price, but also it allows people, now you can get like a 2 or 3 carat diamond. It's like far more accessible than in naturals. And I think also like the sustainability aspect appeals to people. And I try to be careful about how I speak to sustainability with regards to lab versus natural, because, our natural diamonds are also procured as environmentally responsibly as possible. But I try to just say that I think an argument could be made either way, but I think people who like lab grown feel like you're not excavating from the earth, right? So Right.
No, that makes sense. This is actually a funny story. So when my husband proposed.
Yes.
I didn't, it was 2020 and lab growns weren't on my radar at all. And he also didn't talk to me about proposing or rings or anything. So
I need more of this story.
Well, fortunately, my sister, Big Vic, friend of the show, was there to guide him.
Thank God.
Thank
Secret
God.
weapon.
Thank God. Yes. Thank God for Big Vic. But anyway, we went to get our wedding bands and our jeweler is a family friend. And
Love that.
he brought us in and he's sizing us and he's telling us, he's like, oh yeah, I just had this guy come in and his fiance really wants a 4 carat. And he was like, well, this is my budget. And he was like, what can we do? And he starts telling us like, oh yeah, so we got this lab grown. And I think at the time he said it cost him like $22K or something. And it was a 4 carat ring.
It's nuts.
And Jake and I are looking at each other and we're like, Sal, what the why didn't you tell us about this before? Because I totally would have done it. Like,
you should ask him about his upgrade or trade-in policy.
Right? I know, Sal, come on. No, but it's so funny because I think it was like fresh on his radar too, and he didn't really know what to make of it. And now it's just so much more mainstream. And I see certain jewelers who poo-poo it still, and they're like, no, natural diamonds only. And I think there's room for everything. Like you said, it comes down to the psychology of it, and like, I'm never going to sell my ring. Like if something happened, I would pass it to a family member, God forbid,
Yes.
But so, okay, we have naturals and lab growns. What do you think of other stones as an engagement ring?
Like colored gemstones?
Yeah.
I think they're super fun.
Yeah.
I think if they appeal to you, you should totally explore them. I mean, there's really beautiful meaning behind or like, assumed meaning behind certain colored stones like sapphires or rubies and emeralds. Some of them are associated with birth months. So that can feel really sentimental for people for a number of reasons. But I'd say like the colored stone engagement ring girly person is a specific person.
Yes.
Not for everyone, but I also am seeing people do like interesting things with colored stones as side stones instead of the center stone. But
I like that.
It just gives you like room to be creative and fun.
Yes.
So if it appeals to you, go for it.
I agree.
Yes.
Speaking of creative and fun, I want to talk about your new collection.
Oh, thank you.
Everything is unbelievable. So
Thank you.
as we talked about, like you are kind of the queen of the custom process and you talk to a lot of brides, grooms. You know what people want. You kind of know probably what's to come as well. So is that what this new collection was inspired by?
So I can tell you the name and like more of the detail like behind because it's one of my favorite parts of designing and being creative is like really my heart like kind of has to lead what I do. And I think like just being really authentically and emotionally attached to what I'm doing and then being able to tell the story behind that, I think just helps people connect with me and with what I'm doing.
Yes.
And I think especially because, for the most part, we're designing engagement rings or right-hand rings, like, rings that are really significant in terms of both an investment and an emotional standpoint. I think to have some messaging for people to kind of start with feels really exciting.
Yes.
And the collection it's much bolder, like, which you probably have noticed. A lot of my signature work is really delicate. But the thing is like, I remember learning in fashion school, like the pendulum always swings so far in one direction, it has to go back in the other. And I think these like whimsical, light, like really delicate rings, they're beautiful. I think people are just like kind of tired a little bit of them. People want something different and unique.
Yes.
So my new collection, which is called Levitate. It's really like chunky and bolder and more daring.
When you say chunky, I think there's a certain idea that people have in their head, like thick, but it's chunky in a dainty way. Like I can't.
Thank you.
You have to see the collection too. So if you're listening right now, I want you to, if you're driving, don't go on your phone. But when you stop, I want you to really look at these rings because they're so exquisite and it's obvious that they would be because they're coming from you. So
you're the sweetest. Thank you.
No, it's the truth. You have such an eye, such a vision.
Thank you.
What what trends are you seeing a lot? So we have this collection, which is very different than a lot of the things that we've seen.
Yes.
But are you seeing people ask for similar things? Or are you seeing people come in and be like, I want something totally out of the box, like, whatever people are getting, I don't want that.
I mean, I think the majority of couples that I work with want something timeless, but they want almost like a detail or an aspect of the ring. It's almost like you can't quite put your finger on what makes it different, but it feels different and special. So it's like timeless with a twist sounds cheesy, but something you're going to love always, you're not going to tire of, but it's going to feel personalized and special and a little bit different. And it's pretty wild how you can make very minor changes to a ring and really transform the end product.
Such as what? Like, let's say, we have my ring here, which is like a standard, you have
a split shank.
It's a split shank.
Which is now becoming very trendy, right?
It?
So again, it's not a huge change, right? Like we had this very delicate engagement ring that everyone was getting for a while. And now it's like you don't totally change that, but you're just making it a split shank.
Yeah.
Right? Like
I didn't even know what it's called. It's a split shank.
It's beautiful. It's a really beautiful and timeless style. It's gorgeous.
It means a lot coming from you.
Of course. And I think people are like still something that I think will continue to be popular are fancy cuts, right? Like people just love it. I used to make a ton of round brilliant rings. Like
really?
When I started around 10 years ago, like everyone wanted round. And now like I can't even tell you the last round shape ring I want.
Isn't that funny?
But the cool thing also about fine jewelry and engagement rings specifically is like the trends are relatively long lasting. Like they can span a decade. And they're these kind of, I think also they're these subtle changes, right? Like you're taking this thin band and you're making it split, or people will, instead of wanting it really delicate, they'll want something really chunky. Or maybe instead of prongs, they're going to do a bezel, which is like a rim of metal. But I mean, at the end of the day, you still have like the same anatomy of a ring, right?
Right. No, it's so true.
Changing that a little.
So as far as a dainty band, let's say, I hear a lot of people say, oh, you don't want to go too thin with the band because then the stone might fall out. Is that true? And is there anything that you can do to prevent that?
So I like to toe the line of being delicate, but not so delicate that you're going to have problems. Like we want it to stand the test of time.
Yeah.
Some things that people will kind of misunderstand is that like because a diamond is the hardest substance on earth, they think it's indestructible, which is not true. Like if you hit your diamond, if it takes a hard blow at the right angle, you can have problems. It's not very likely, but I think the same applies to a delicate engagement ring. So I typically don't make bands or shanks that are less than 1.5 millimeters wide.
Okay.
And the reason for that is I think if you're at like 1.2, you're like asking for trouble. Like in my opinion, it's like something's going to happen at some point, right? Like you're going to get your ring cut on a door or, knock it into something and it's not going to become totally ruined, but the band might become out of round, things could get caught. You'll have to fix it.
For sure.
Whereas if you're at like a 1.5 millimeter, I think something like really out of the ordinary has to happen for it to become problematic.
Okay, that makes sense. And then I also want to touch on, of course, wedding bands because they pair really well with our engagement rings.
Yes.
What do we need to consider when we're looking for a wedding band? And I know that varies so much depending on what the engagement ring is, but like getting the wheels turning, what kind of things do we need to think about?
So, I mean, before you even start thinking about your wedding band, when you're designing your engagement ring, you should think about your wedding band, not in the sense of like stylistically what the wedding band has to be.
Yeah.
But one of the most important questions I think to answer is how the two rings are going to fit together, right?
Yeah.
So are you going to have like a space or a gap between the two rings, or do you want them to sit flush? And then once you have your engagement ring and your engagement ring shopping, I think it's about stylistically kind of knowing who you are. Do you want things to be like matchy-matchy, or do you like things to be intentionally mismatched? And what I mean by that is if you have an all-metal solitaire, you probably are going to want some diamonds or an eternity band for your wedding band.
Right.
If you're matchy-matchy, you might just want a plain gold band to go with your plain gold engagement ring setting.
Sure. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. And then also, I mean, I don't know. A lot of people who do this, I do it sometimes. I'll just wear my band.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Sometimes it feels like too formal or something to wear my engagement ring out. But I love my band and I love wearing it on its own. So if you're someone who's like maybe considering doing that from time to time, like picking something that's maybe a little bit bolder that is like fun to wear when it's on its own. I don't know.
I think with wedding bands, you want it to be classic and timeless, right? To kind of like preserve the sentiment or significance behind it. But I do think it's important to have it be substantial, right? Like you said, so you can wear it on its own, but it also looks good matched. If you want to stack over time, it'll go with things. And I think the first place to start is like, do you want metal, like all a solid gold or platinum ring, or do you want diamonds? And then if you want diamonds, it's like, you know, the world is your oyster. You can play with shape or with size or with scale or how they're set. Like, I mean, eternity bands are like custom engagement rings. They're all, you change one little thing and it's a totally different ring.
It's so true. It's so true. I know there's so much that goes into it. And I think people see pictures of rings and they really align with it. Like, oh, I love this ring. But I would challenge anyone who is maybe looking for something a little bit more unique and different to say, well, what do I like about that ring and how can I personalize it on my own? And don't just Pinterest carbon copy. It's really fun to have something of your own that's a little bit outside the box.
I could not agree more. And the process in and of itself is also just like so rich and fun, like with meaning and connection. It's like, it's just, I think, a really special process, even for people to do jointly. Like we work with couples jointly all the time.
Is it more common for couples to work together jointly or for one to come in?
I would say it's probably like split down the middle. I would say like around 50% of couples we work with jointly. Yeah. But I would say closer to like 70 to 80% of people when they come, they're like, I need this ring, or my partner loves this style. I have to work with you. And I think there's a lot of value, not only in like the quality and craftsmanship of our settings, but in like the actual process. It's like a very intimate, personalized process. And I think when people, you know, choose to work with me and with my team, that's valuable to them, that they love that.
Oh yeah. And you're not only incredibly talented, but you're very passionate about what you do. And you're always posting your couples. I love to see, you know, all the different stories. I'm sure you have really fun engagement stories. Do you have any favorites from couples in recent years or not so recent years?
It feels like so unfair to like choose some,
I know.
Like, they're all my babies. I love them all the same, I swear.
But anything like anecdotally funny or interesting in an engagement?
I wish I had like a cool story, but like they're all like, it's like Christmas, right? Like anytime people DM me or send photos or videos through, it's like always just like, you can feel their love and the emotion. I'm so lucky that like what I happen to love and do for work is like just such a beautiful time for people together.
Oh my God, totally. And do you still find that around the holidays is busiest time?
Oh, yeah.
So this is like your busy season.
It should
right
be.
now.
In fact, I have to put up a little PSA that's like, if you want your ring for Christmas,
you got to go right now.
Yep.
Yesterday.
Book a call. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I probably shouldn't have said we can rush things in a week and a half earlier, but no.
Well, you can't do that's like the exception, not the rule by any stretch of the imagination. Okay. So I want to do a little game with you because you are the expert designer. Okay. So are you into celebrities at all?
A bit, yeah.
Okay. So I want you to choose a ring for these celebs. Okay. So we're going to start with Hailey Bieber.
I mean, she's got to have something like big, fancy cut, super like special and unique. So I would go like, I think she has a huge oval, like huge oval or like huge radiant and just like super simple, delicate, but just like bam, you know?
Sexy, fabulous.
Yes, yes.
Oprah Winfrey.
Oh, she's got to have something cool, right?
Yes,
and I
powerful.
feel like like, and maybe she would have like a round center with like emerald cut side stones, like emerald cut pear shapes. Like I just feel like she'd have something that's like yellow gold and like rich and delicious, but like a little funky and daring and unconventional.
Oh, yes. Okay. Love it. Rihanna.
Oh, dude, she's going to do something super cool.
The coolest.
Like a moire-tois, like a 2-stone ring, or like
what is it called? A moire-tois?
Moire-tois, which like I don't speak French, so I'm totally embarrassing myself.
No,
but it's like
I
me
love
and
it.
you, or some people call it tois, you and me.
Oh, cute.
But it's like two typically like different shaped diamonds that are kind of like placed in an interesting way. So you know what though? She might even be cooler than that. Like I just feel like she'd have something really unique, like a really different shape. It'd be big, it'd be standout, maybe bezel cut, like something different, something rad for her.
I love it. Love it. Okay. Nicole Kidman.
Oh, she's like so timeless.
She's
Love
so
her.
timeless.
Like
Gorgeous.
maybe like an emerald cut 3-stone ring or like an emerald cut with traps on the side. Just like so regal and chic.
What is a trap?
It's like a trapezoid.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, kind of like
an idiot. Sorry.
No, you're not. I mean, no, you're not. I'm sure you're not the only one with that question. It's like, kind of angles down.
It sounds perfect for her.
It's really pretty.
And then last one, we got to go with T Swift's because she's the moment.
I feel like she would maybe do like some type of antique stone, maybe like a pear or like a mauve, something that's really like sparkly but different, and then she would have details in the setting like micropave and like the prongs or in the basket, but it'd be timeless but still special.
That little edge. Yeah. Oh, okay. That was so fun. I love
good.
that. Okay, Susie, every episode we do something called premarital counseling.
I love this.
Yeah. So one of our listeners writes in. They usually have a question or a concern, and we try to guide them through. And I was hoping that you could help our girl today. She's having a little bit of an issue.
I hope I can help her too. Bring it.
Okay. We're going to call her Laura. We keep everything anonymous, so if anyone ever wants to write in, they can always email. She is newly engaged. Her wedding date is to be determined. Okay. She says, I feel like such a jerk on so many levels. I had a hunch that my fiance was going to propose, so I went snooping, don't judge me. And sure enough, I found a ring box in his underwear drawer. He had told me before that he had his grandmother's stone and planned to use it to propose one day. I love the sentimental piece of this, but the center stone is so tiny, and I was really hoping he would incorporate it into the ring rather than have it be the focal point. My worst fears came true when I saw this ring. It's the same as grandma's ring, just refurbished and cleaned up. 0 changes have been made. I absolutely hate it and cry every time I think about it. How do I fake excitement when he proposes, then tell him that we need to switch it up? As a side note, he can fully afford his own ring. He does very well. This is not a money issue. I don't want to hurt his feelings, but I don't want to hurt my eyes every time I look at this thing. What should I do?
Well, first of all, you don't know what he plans to do with this ring. If it hasn't been reset, like there's still opportunity maybe for you to be invited into maybe he's waiting to invite you into the process of redesigning it.
Yes.
And I think it really like, you have to know your partner, like how emotionally attached to this ring is he? Is he going to be upset and offended? And I think like, you just have to find a way of having the conversation, like be respectful. And I guess before you have the conversation, decide how much it's going to really hurt his feelings, you know?
Totally.
But I wouldn't be super bummed yet. Maybe there's room to repurpose it. You could say like, oh, let's set that diamond into a necklace and I could wear it. He could give it for like a day of wedding gift. And then it's not all over, you know? Like there's still
not all over. My mom always says, if you go looking, you're going to find something you don't like.
It's so true.
And you're right. Like it could be too soon. In the event that it's not, and he just plans on proposing like this. I don't know how much time has passed. I hope we get you before the engagement, but maybe just like casually start working in the conversation. Like, oh my God, my girlfriend or this celebrity or whoever, like this ring is like really what my dream. Like I would love a way to incorporate grandma's ring into something like this.
That's such a good idea too,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Because yes, there are ways also to almost always incorporate heirlooms into something new.
Right. Just a hair manipulative, you know. We don't want to completely dupe this
but
man.
If you're going to do that, also like get a partner in crime. Like have someone, because first of all, also no one wants to like, nor do they expect to propose and have their partner be disappointed. Like he wants you to love the ring.
Yes.
So start there, right? Like he's not doing this on purpose, giving you, he just doesn't know. So you're right. That's a good suggestion. Find a smart way of letting him know.
And I feel bad that she feels like she's being a jerk, but I think it's so nice that she is excited about the sentimental part of this ring. And I think that there is a way to make everyone happy with this. And even if he proposes with this ring, let's say like we're too late, whatever, like be happy with it. And then like you said, just have the honest conversation. Like, I love this. It makes me so happy that you gave it to me. I did always envision
totally
maybe something a little bit different, but I want this to be a part of it in some way.
Yes.
Let's go see Susie. Let's make an appointment and we'll figure out how we can do it.
Yeah, and ask him how he feels, right?
Yeah.
Like, how does he feel about it? Because you also have to know, like, if, I don't know, at what cost is this ring, right?
Like, you're wearing it, but it is symbolic of your union together.
Totally.
So his opinion does matter.
Yeah.
I know.
A little
hate
bit.
to admit it, but sometimes it does. Okay, whatever. So we are with you, and we hope that everything works out well. And send us pictures from engagement.
You'll get it sorted.
Yes. All right, Susie. We end every episode with an after party.
Ooh.
Just some fun wedding questions. Are you
Love it.
ready?
Oh, I am. Pop the champagne.
Okay, first question. What is your honeymoon hotspot?
I mean, anywhere in Italy, on the coast of Italy. Like,
Do you have a favorite?
I mean, the Amalfi Coast, which is like probably so old and tired, but
No.
I'm old and tired, so it's fitting. Like,
No, it's not old and tired. It's timeless and amazing. And there's a reason everyone dreams to go and hopefully
Yes.
does get to go because it's fabulous.
the food, the wine,
Okay.
you can do everything there. They are known for like their lemon trees. So there's like, you could take beautiful walks like up and down the hills, smell the lemon trees.
Ugh.
And Ravello is like one of the most beautiful, quaintest, cutest little towns. I took a cooking class there and it's just like, romantic and beautiful. The food, like I just remember the eggs and like the bread being so fresh and delicious. Everything is just, you're just gonna love it there.
Oh, my mouth is watering. Like a fresh egg with an orange yolk and like everything
Exactly.
just tastes better
I know.
there.
It does. It really does. It really does.
Now I'm wanting like a lemon gelati or something.
Me too. Now I'm wanting a trip to Italy.
Oh.
When are we going?
Can we go?
Yeah.
I'm literally ready whenever you are.
Same. Pack my bags.
Okay. What song is going to get you on the dance floor at a wedding?
Anything, Earth, Wind, and Fire.
Oh,
like
my girl.
anything.
Yep.
Oof.
Yep. I had a wedding on the 21st night of September
Oh,
this year.
stop
and
it.
Yes. And it was so special and sweet. It's like, I don't care how many times it's
No.
played
No.
at any wedding. I want it.
Uh-uh.
I want it
Yeah.
in my veins.
It makes you want to just like move and be happy and all the things.
The best.
Yeah.
I feel like an old lady, but they don't make music like that anymore.
They don't.
They really don't.
don't.
I know. It's sad.
I know.
The kids need it.
They do. I gotta be exposing that to my daughter, right?
Seriously.
Dance parties with like some old school hits.
I was gonna say, yeah,
I'm gonna do
you
that.
should. You
I'm
totally
gonna,
should.
I'm gonna do that.
I love it.
She's like into Taylor Swift, which is great too. But
yeah.
we can do some throwbacks
For sure. She'll
Yeah.
love it. She'll
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Mix it up.
Okay, Susie, what hors d'oeuvre will you never pass up at a wedding?
A pig in a blanket.
Oh, girl, me
like,
too.
oh, why is it so good? That like flaky pastry and like
They're
salty.
They're
Little
fabulous.
hot dog,
Yeah.
the best.
Oh my God, so good. Okay, what is your signature cocktail or mocktail?
Negroni. Love. And like I know everyone's on the spritz train, which I
Yeah.
love, but I would need something a little stronger.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I just love that
kick.
big ice cube and
Uh-huh.
it's delicious.
A little bite.
Yeah.
Okay, if you could invite any living dream guest to your wedding, who would you invite?
I mean, can I invite him as my husband?
Yes.
Is that- oh, this is a hard question. Okay, any living guest, it has to be like a celebrity.
No.
Any living
They just have to be alive.
guest. I mean, I'd invite my daughter.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Kinda cheesy, but
no,
like,
it's not cheesy. That's so sweet.
Obviously, she should be there, but
Yes.
she's the most important thing to me, so
Obsessed.
she'd be there.
I was laughing when you said, "Can I invite him as the groom?" Because I had a guest say Keanu Reeves as the groom.
Duh. Yeah. I'm like, oh, I need more time actually to think about who my next husband's gonna be.
Totally. Oh, we're on the lookout. We've got David over here. He's a
Oh.
single man.
Oh yeah, all right.
He's very young, but he is our king. So And then Susie, last question that I have for you today is: what is one piece of practical advice that you could give to any bride planning her wedding?
Slow down. People will rush you onto the next thing, and I think it just inherently can be a stressful experience planning your wedding.
Yes.
But once it's over, it's over. Like you don't get to be engaged again, and then people will just try to push you to the next chapter, of purchasing a home or having a baby if, they're just kind of being conventional. So
Going
just
down the line.
slow down and remind yourself, like, even when it gets hard and stress and anxiety can creep in, like, take a deep breath and remember why you're doing this.
Oh, that's beautiful advice, Susie.
Thank you.
You are my queen. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.
Where can everyone find you and Susie Saltzman?
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been such a treat. I loved this. You can follow me on Instagram at Susie Saltzman. It's SUSIE. Or Yeah, find me on Instagram or my website. Yeah,
it's the best.
SusieSaltzman.com.
You gotta if you're not already following, which I'm sure you are, you gotta follow along.
Thank
It's
you.
like just the best.
Thank you.
You have
Thank
the best
you.
content. Susie, thank you so
Thank you.
much.
This was so much fun.
This was so much fun.
Yeah.
Thanks for tuning into the Pre Nup. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform or on the Love Stories TV YouTube channel. Follow at @the_pre_nup and at Love Stories TV on Instagram for more. Have feedback or suggestions for the next episode? Feel free to reach out to us at podcast@lovestoriestv.com.